Hello, my name is Simon Gervais, and I'm the author of Trained to Hunt. Former Army Ranger Pearce is second-guessing his decision to join the CIA. But when a new enhancing drug killed 4 football players, including his daughter's boyfriend, settling down is the last thing on Hunt's mind. But to investigate, Hunt travels to war-torn Venezuela to face a vicious general with nothing to lose. Outgunned, outmanned, and out of time, Hunt is the last person standing between a vicious enemy bent on wiping out an entire generation of Americans.
Our guest today is Simon Gervais. He's a former infantry officer in the Canadian military and a federal agent with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He's investigated international drug-related cases, was assigned to an anti-terrorist unit. After several deployments to Europe and the Middle East, Simon switched gears and served as a close protection specialist, similar to what the Secret Service does. It goes without saying that Simon's professional resume is impressive. He's a been there, done there type of guy. But in 2014, he retired from public service to become a full-time writer, and since then has gone on to become a #1 Amazon bestseller. In all, he's written 6 books, 4 in the Mike Walton series, and now 2 in the Pearce Hunt series, the latest being Trained to Hunt. Welcome to the show, Simon. We're happy to have you join us.
Hey.
Glad to be here. Hey,
What's up, brother?
I'm going to bring my
Salud.
Bahamian beer right here.
Yeah.
Let's all have a drink.
Nice. All right. It's a
Why
good way to
not?
start.
So let's get right into it.
All right.
So, Simon, you have a tremendous amount of experience. And after reading your books, it almost seems like you live the life of some of your characters, especially your latest protagonist, Pearce Hunt. Pearce's background is very similar to yours. He's a former Army Ranger, currently a DEA agent. So, let me ask you, where did the inspiration for Pearce Hunt come from? And is he you?
I honestly, Pearson is 6'2". I wish I was 6'2". I really do.
We all do.
I'm half a foot. I'm missing half a foot. Hopefully, maybe when I'm going to get to 50, I'll get there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say. I think Pearson is probably a better man than I am in a professional way. As a father, though, he kind of sucks a little bit.
A little bit.
He went undercover and he cheated his wife with his target, his mark. But he did really fall in love. He's not the type of guy who's going to go around and chase women. It's only happened once when he was undercover. It wasn't going well with his wife prior to this. But on the professional front, yeah, he's a little bit like me, but I've never been in the special forces or rangers, these type of thing. I was just a regular grunt who became an infantry officer before September 11. I joined the Army in 1997. So we were still training using the tactics of the Korean War at the time.
Right.
So everything changed, of course, on September 11, but I was already on my way out at the time, and I was already in Saskatchewan, actually, and Regina at the Depot Division, doing the RCMP training when the Twin Towers collapsed. So we do have a similar background, but I think he's a much better operator than I have ever been.
The guy's an awesome operator. I mean, some of the scenes in your latest thriller, Trained to Hunt, I mean, he takes on some bad dudes with just a pistol, like that vehicle. There's a hit in one of them. I don't want to give too much away, but I mean, he goes right into action, and it's not that he's fearless. I mean, he knows the situations he's getting himself into, but he knows what he needs to be done, and he goes and does it.
Yeah, I think you could actually relate to that as well, because you and I did protect. I protected the Prime Minister. You protected the President. It's a little bit. It's very similar, and sometimes the only weapon that you have in the car as a bodyguard is your pistol.
Oh yeah.
So in the specialized unit I was in the RCMP, we became quite good with that. So that's why in my novel I use the main characters using his pistol a lot, because that's the weapon I'm the best with. When I was with a counterterrorism unit, we spent 2 days a month at the range shooting nonstop in different scenarios. When a regular police officer, as you probably know, will shoot once a year for his qualification, and that's about it. So I know my pistol quite well, and I think that in certain type of environment, they're the best weapon to have. Of course, I think Pearce would have preferred to have an MP5 or a C8 during these ambushes, but that's not what he had. So he had to work with what he had available at the time.
Awesome. Simon, I have a question kind of playing off Chris's a little bit. In both Hunt Them Down and Train to Hunt, Pearce struggles with the sense of duty he has to use the skills he has to make the world a safer place, and his commitment to his family. And that's always a tug of war for him in both books. And I'm wondering, is there an element of that tug of war that led to your retirement?
100%. 100%. That's exactly what happened. Of course, the writing career played a role as well. But I'm very lucky to have a wife that's a professional, and that she's always supported my career, being a writer or being an RCMP officer. But I have to admit that as a police officer, especially in the specialized unit I was in, at some point I was deployed overseas for 2 weeks every month. And my wife had her own dental clinic to run. She had 2 young kids at the time. We had 2 young kids. And it was very difficult for her to manage everything. And it definitely put a strain on our relationship. And I was looking around me with people with VIPSS, which is the VIP Protective Service in the RCMP, and the PMPD, which is exactly the equivalent of your Secret Service Presidential Detail. The divorce rate is through the roof. And it's not something I wanted. I think family for me has always come first. But the thing is, when you're in these type of unit, the camaraderie is very, very strong. We do everything together. We train together. We go out together. I mean, there's a bond. And when you don't show up for work, when you're not 100% at work and you're thinking about your family, then you can put everybody at risk because you're not 100% focused.
Yeah, for sure.
And when I felt that I couldn't be 100% focused on my work, I think it was time for me to do something else. And the writing came just at that time. But it definitely played a major role in me leaving the RCMP.
I could totally echo that. With the Secret Service, a lot of the agents, just because it's all work and no life, there's no balance there. They get divorced, and divorce rate is high in law enforcement to begin with, but with the Secret Service, it's very high. And so what happens is a lot of the agents marry each other. So like my wife is a Secret Service agent, and even with that fact, and one of the reasons why I left the Secret Service also, like Simon, is because of family, because we also have young kids.
And sometimes the shift work is extremely difficult because the shift work is different. Even if you're married with another agent, another officer, if she works night, you work days. You won't see each other sometime for 2-3 weeks in a row.
Happen all the time. Ships passing in the night. That was
and how long can you take that? As a family man, you need to decide what's best for your family.
Right. Yeah, it was a decade. That was it.
It's easy for us though to complain, but I'm looking at my friends that are still in the military, and these guys get deployed a year at a time now. The deployments used to be 6 months, then they jump to 8 months, 12 months, and sometime now they're over 12 months. They're over 14 months. So it's
that's brutal.
It is brutal. It is brutal.
So not only do you have burnout with you individually, but your family also suffers.
Yeah, big time.
But you can do a lot of overtime. You go in a parking lot of the people that work at the Prime Minister Protective Detail. It's all high-end luxury cars because the guys are doing so much overtime.
Dude,
they can afford anything they want.
Go in the Secret Service headquarters parking lot, and you see a bunch of cars. But speaking of that, the RCMP guys who protect the Prime Minister, I'm wearing one of their shirts today.
I saw that. Many
one of their
thanks.
shirts. Yeah.
I had to put a little Chris in here.
Yeah. So the boys are wearing secret.
We're supporting Chris today.
Secret Service.
That's my boys.
So Simon, obviously you got out of that type of work for your family, and then your next career becomes publishing. You're currently with Thomas and Mercer. Can you tell us about how that relationship started and how that's worked for you, especially as you did a pretty dramatic career switch from protecting the life of the Prime Minister to possibly writing about someone that's protecting the life of the Prime Minister or whatever it might be?
Yeah. Uh, it's how can I say that? Can you repeat that question?
Yeah. So
I
just
was
coming
somewhere
coming from
else.
one career, coming from one career, which is protective detail, to all of a sudden you're in the publishing world,
Yeah.
and then you join with Thomas and Mercer, who is kind of the new kid on the block, but is very a lot of authors are going there and they're
Yeah.
loving working with
Yeah.
Amazon. Can you just tell us about how that developed?
Yeah, I was extremely lucky, honestly. Yes, you're right. Thomas and Mercer's a new kid on the block for Mr. Intruder, but they've been there since 2011 now. And as you've probably saw who they're getting now, the big deals, Dean Koontz, Patricia Cornwell,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
I mean, Jeffrey Daver.
Right.
This is the place to go. It is what Emily, I mean, they're still very powerful. Emily Bessler book, they have Brad Thor, Vince Flynn, they have Matt Bethley, all these guys, Jack. Um, but Thomas and Mercer can push as much or if not more books than they can because they have all the data. They're really, really good at what they do. The editing is the absolute best I've seen in the business. They know their clients, they know their authors, and something that is really important to me is how they treat us authors.
Hmm.
And they
Right.
above and beyond anything I've seen in the industry, except maybe if you're Stephen King and your publisher will do anything for you. But that's how I feel with Thomas and Mercer. I feel that they make me believe that they feel that they're lucky to have me. But we all know that I'm the one lucky to have them around me and pushing my books like crazy. For me, it's really a dream come true. I've been at it for many years now, and it's only since a year and a half ago that my books have really took off and sold enough for me to actually replace and actually make more than when I was a federal agent. But it took me exactly 5 years. It's funny because that's what I said to my wife when I left. And as you guys know, we're in a special situation that very, very lucky to have a wife that has always made more than I did. And that's why she was very supportive of my leap of faith when I went into publishing. But I told her, Nizan, it's going to take me at least 5 years to make as much as I used to make in the RCMP.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, actually, just starting the same process, same exact situation.
I think we all are. And I think it's important if you want to make it in this business to take a leap of faith at some point. So that's exactly what I did. And I saw in one of your podcasts, you were talking about how important it is to have your connection. And that's why you guys go to Thriller Fest and you met and now you have this podcast. Connections are everything. I mean, I went through Thomas and Mercer with a 10,000 essay on a book on Hunt Them Down, really. And one of my friends introduced me to his great editor, Liz Pearson's. And they actually bought it on 10,000 words, or maybe it was 15,000 words. I don't remember. And I had another publisher that made an offer as well. So everything kind of took off at the same time.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's
It
great.
is. I was very lucky. I was at the right place at the right moment. I knew the right people. It just happened.
You also put in the hard work.
Yeah.
And you're rewarding their faith because your books, especially the two Pearce Hunt books, are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Right.
appreciate that. It takes me, some people can write 2-3 books a year. I can't. I'm a 1 book a year type of guy. And, I put everything I have into them. And I'm glad when people like you enjoy them. It's really important to me that people actually enjoy what I'm doing. If not, I get no pleasure doing it.
No, it was a great book. It was a great read. So,
for sure.
But I mean, you couldn't have picked a better time to write and publish Train to Hunt. You brought together elements within the Venezuelan government and military and members of Hezbollah. And I'm trying not to give away too much of the book, but to manufacture and distribute a highly addictive but deadly drug. It's a very likely nightmare scenario, considering the problems inside Venezuela and the massive opioid crisis affecting the U.S. And I know we write fiction, but we also write stories that are based on fact and reality. I have young kids. You have young kids. Actually, we all have young kids.
Yeah.
And the opioid crisis isn't going anywhere. In fact, it's actually getting a little worse. So my question to you is, how do you think the U.S. and the Canadian governments can stop the flow of illegal drugs into our country? Is it even possible?
we've tried. I work closely with my DA colleagues when I was a drug investigator, and we weren't catching more than 1% of what was coming in Canada. It's extremely difficult to interdict drugs coming in. As long as there's a demand for it, there will be a production.
Right.
And even if I know in the United States, you guys had laws making it more difficult to get amphetamine, what you use to make pain.
Right.
What do you call the medication against pain in English? I just have the French word in my mind. But anyway, you made it a little bit harder to get. And you've seen a major drop in an overdose at the time, and there's less lab producing these type of drugs. What happened a year later, the Mexican and other Latin cartels took over, and they're the ones shipping it. They're building it, and then they're producing it, and they're shipping it to the United States. And now I've read recently that the west coast of the United States is saturated in drugs, and now they're using the routes on the east side of the country to pass it along.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think
it's getting worse.
I think it's getting worse. Am I right to think there's about 200,000 deaths related to drug in the United States per year? I think that's what I saw last time.
When I was practicing, I was practicing right when OxyContin came out. So I was one of the vocal few at the time that was very much against OxyContin in terms of generalized pain control as a prescription, because I was starting to see the addictive nature of it coming out in the general population. But the marketing behind it was so strong that it was it was an inevitable issue when they were pumping out so much of this from a pharmaceutical standpoint, that once it got into the general population, there was no stopping it. It was just one of those things that once the door opened up, you weren't going to put it back in that bottle. And the deaths are hard to quantify because there are so many other secondary medical issues because of the core issue of a medication like that, or some of the other ones, that are supposedly highly controlled, but there's too much money to be made, even in a quote unquote legitimate way. And all these pain clinic popping up and all these other types of, pop-up clinics across the country. It was just a problem that started out the gate. And from a pharmaceutical standpoint, a medicine standpoint, I don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle. On top of the issue is that you can actually sue physicians in the United States for undertreating pain. So if you yes, you can sue for undertreating pain. And so it really put the medical community in a real bind, the legitimate people, the folks that weren't looking to make a quick buck. You can actually sue for undertreating it. And that was on top of a super new, highly addictive medication like OxyContin.
Well, that's crazy that you can sue a doctor for that.
Tell me about it.
It's
America.
It's your healthcare system is very different from ours.
Yes.
I won't say which one is the best because this is very political.
Yeah,
everybody
no,
has
we
their
don't.
own. Everybody has
We
their own
avoid
opinion
politics.
on that.
I've been through this a million times.
It's a little bit crazy that you can actually sue someone for undertreating.
For undertreating,
especially-
yes.
That's
And
Never heard that before.
there's no quantifiable data to say what is over or under treating. So, yeah.
But there's always going to be someone who's going to exploit the sickness that affects this.
No
country.
doubt. So,
Afflicts this
so
country.
your choice of this in your book is very appropriate for a number of reasons.
Right.
And I won't get into all of them, but it's a very legitimate concern from a threat standpoint.
It is. In Ottawa, a few years ago, we had a young teenager that died from an overdose of fentanyl. And that's why I've decided, I'm going to use something similar to that in the book, because this is a threat that as a parent, we all fear that it's going to happen to our children. And getting back to Canada a little bit, we at the federal level, Justin Trudeau and his Liberals just announced about it's a law now. Since a few months ago, marijuana is legal across Canada. So you can produce it, you can smoke it, you can use it, you can put it in Jell-O if you want, teddy bears. I know some states in the United States it's like that as well.
Yep.
But for us, it was a big change.
Well, I live in Colorado, and so we're on the forefront of that in the United States. But I can tell you that my wife, who's a pediatric ICU doctor in the state, has seen a huge uptick in legal marijuana usage and issues surrounding that with concurrent problems with teenagers. So I know there's an argument that it's not a drug, that people be, it's not an issue. It's not like a heavy narcotic, but we're seeing a massive uptick in the ERs and in the ICUs because of it. So that's going to be something that's going to be popping up in another 4 or 5 years. And eventually, like OxyContin, we'll probably have a whole nother issue surrounding that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was going to say the other thing too with, go ahead, Simon.
No, I just agree with Mike 100%.
Yeah. So 2 things I was going to say to that was, first of all, you hit it on the head, is as long as there's demand, there's going to be product. So if I want drugs, someone's going to provide them to me. So the cartel has a permanent job until we fix the desire to have it. Then also, though, I've read a lot about this over the years too, is as we legalize marijuana, we cut into the cartel's profit. Well, the cartel is going to make their money no matter what. So what do? They invest then in another form of drug, and they push that, make it cheaper, get more people hooked. So that's why we're seeing so much, with heroin, with fentanyl and all this stuff, is they're pushing this out. And the danger part is they're getting cheaper product, bringing it in from China. And now we're seeing, and I don't know the number, as you were saying, Simon, on how many die. I don't know that it's 200, but I know it's pushing, it's tens of thousands. If it's not over 100, it's around that at least. So it's sad.
I had notes about this at some point. I don't remember, but it was 200. It was 200 people a day dying in the United States because of drugs.
I would believe that, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so bringing this back to the book, bringing it back to Train to Hunt, which obviously the drug component is a key plot. Well, in that story, you have a character, and when I first read his name, my mind just went in a bunch of different directions. So I wanted to ask about him because I love the name. But he's called the Spider.
Yeah.
Great description for a person's character. So what inspired the Spider, and how did you kind of come up with him? Because I loved it. I thought it was a well done character.
It's funny. What I did is that I kind of imagined the person just having a lot of contacts everywhere in the drug world. So it's kind of a tentacle. So I said, okay, well, let's call him the Spider. And then for General Euclides Pereza, what I did is that I went to Venezuela website and I pick one of the first name of one of their general, and then I go back a few pages and I pick the name of last name of one of their generals. So I put it like this is how I build my characters.
That's great.
Dude, that's so weird. I do the same thing. It's so weird.
We have the same background. That might be why.
Yeah,
I do the same thing. Mine's a lot of my stories take place with as a Pakistan influence. And so I do the exact same thing with the characters' names, first names and last names. It's so crazy.
Hey, in Hunt Them Down, you just got 1,000. You're over 1,000 reviews on Amazon now, which is mind blowing, man.
Insane.
What do you think was in that book that resonated so much with the audience that really pushed them to want to, to kind of give you that recognition outside of just buying the books?
I think all parents can relate to getting a kid kidnapped. It doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. I think if your kids get away, so you don't know where he is or where she is, you're going to do everything in your power to get them back. And Hunt has kind of skills that allow him to do this, and he doesn't, he just doesn't let anyone live if they touch his daughter. Then that's the whole point of the story. It's a revenge story at the same time.
Yeah.
And not only for the protagonist, but for the antagonist as well. Valentina Mieles, that we call also the Black Tosca, she has her own reason why she wants to do that. And I think I made it clear that, she's all bad. There's no good in her. But Hector, his cousin, then this guy is different. I don't know if you realize that when you read the book, but he's not all bad. He has a conscience and he doesn't agree with everything that the Black Tosca does.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the book picked up, because there's nuances, and the bad guys, they're not all bad. They have their own reason why they're doing their thing, and they think that they're good. And the same thing for Train to Hunt. The general, he's doing it for his people.
Right.
There's no real gain for him. It's really about helping his country. He's doing it the wrong way, but he truly believes in what he's doing.
Yeah. That's a likable villain, right?
I'm not sure he's likable, especially after one of the scene that you guys, I think,
Oh my
talked about.
gosh.
I don't know if it
Yeah,
was
I want to talk about that later, or we can talk about it right now. So I mentioned it on social media. It's chapter 30, and reading it, there's something happens. One of the good guys gets caught. It's an undercover thing, and the way he's murdered just sat with me, and as a writer, I could write something like that, but it was just, I wanted to know where it came from in your mind. Like, where did that come from? Because it was visceral. It was, the way it ended was fantastic.
Visceral is a
because-
good word.
Yeah, it was. Now, the way it ends, I could smell the dirt. I
Yeah.
don't want to say too much.
Yeah.
And it was really good. But before that, what had happened to the undercover DEA agent was just, oh my God, I felt sick reading it, but it was good. It was in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Thanks.
where did that come from?
Well, this is something that happened before. It's not the exact same thing, but I've read a report about somebody that got caught behind enemy lines, and that's how they were treated. That's exactly the machine that they used to make him talk, and that's how they dealt with him. So there's nothing fantastic about this, really. It's really things that in these worlds that you and I don't really know because we're outside. It's happening.
Right.
I don't know if you remember, when the Mexican drug cartels were making war between each other, they were hanging people above the bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, would you see that in the U.S. or Canada? You'd never see that, you know.
Dude, heads
But
on stakes.
Yeah.
it's
really.
crazy. This is really Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird, but that's what they do. And I wanted to show my readers that, you know, even though we are privileged to be in the U.S. or in Canada, that it's not, you know, not everybody have that luxury.
No, it's a
Yeah.
different world out there. So, I mean, at the end of the book, you kind of have you kind of have an idea that there's going to be another Pearce Hunt, and which is great because I think he's a great character.
Yeah.
Where do you envision that series going? And if you can tease the audience, or maybe give us a couple ideas of what's up for Pearce Hunt next.
Mhm.
Well, I can tell you that Pearson is going to Turkey in book 3.
Ooh,
you know,
that's a
I
good
won't name
spot.
the character that disappeared, but there's a character that disappeared at the end of Train to Hunt, and
Yep.
he's very close to Pearce, so he's going to go after him like he went after his daughter.
Right.
But what he doesn't know is that it's somebody very, very close to him that's holding all the strings, and he doesn't know that. So he's kind of a
Nice.
puppet a little bit in the third book. And depending on how the second and third sell, because I just signed a 2-book deal again with Thomas and Mercer for number 3 and 4. Hopefully,
Good.
the 4 is going to be a Pearce Hunt novel. That's what I want. And I mean, Time to Hunt doesn't even have a cover right now, and the pre-orders are already in. So
Wow.
Dude,
I'm
that's
hoping
awesome.
that
That's
number
so
4 is
awesome.
going to go in.
Well, let me ask you: Is Pearce done with the DEA?
Not really. He's done with the DEA because I'm trying to keep my character as real life as possible. If he really did what he did and hunt them down,
Right.
would he
He's
get
done.
rehired? But he's done.
Yeah.
But you know, Tom Hauer, the administrator of
him.
the DEA, he likes him,
Yeah.
so he's
Yeah.
keeping him at arm's length. So he's gonna pull him back once in a while. But now Pearce is, you know, he's with the CIA right now to do something, and he doesn't like it as much as he thought he would.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So speaking of Pearce, I do want to take one brief step back and talk about Mike Walton. That's how I got to know you and read your books and met you, you know, several years ago. And I mean, Mike, great character. I love those books. They're sitting on the shelf behind me. I've enjoyed them. How hard was it to take that, you know, such a strong character with such a dynamic family situation and just the series of books and then move on to a different character? Was it hard letting Mike go? And did you let Mike go? Will Mike maybe reoccur at some point? Is that possible?
It's a good question, and I think that's important to understand. Writing is a business.
Absolutely.
Yep.
When a series doesn't work out or doesn't sell as much as you wanted to, I was with a much smaller publisher. They did everything they could, and we still sold about maybe 50 1,000 copies of the whole series together, but it's just not enough, right, to make a living and contribute to the family. So at some point when you realize that the books aren't selling as well as you were hoping for, you need to take another leap of faith. You need to create something new, and it's something that's really, really hard, because it took me 4 years to build those 3 novels plus the novella, to put them together. I love Mike Walton, I love Lisa, and at the beginning, let me take a step back. You asked me if Pearce Hunt was me. Not really, but Mike Walton is. Mike Walton and Lisa, my wife's name is Lisanne, and she was a medical doctor, but she's a dentist. She's an endodontist surgeon now. And we met at the officers' mess in Gagetown while we were both when we were both in the Army. She was a military dentist at the time. So they have the same story. So this guy, Mike Walton, I loved him. He was me. He had the same background. If you read Mike Walton's background, this is what I used to do with the RCMP. And he makes mistake. Mike Walton makes more mistake than Pearce Hunt, even on the tactical level, like we all do in real life. I mean, sometimes you get in a room and you clear the wrong corner, and something bad happened, and that happened in the Walton books. It doesn't happen as much as Pearce Hunt in the Pearce Hunt book. But what I was going to say is that I had to leave them behind and try to write something else. If I want to be a writer, you need to get something in return at some point. And I decided to write another series and take a chance. That's why I left the Mike Walton series. Will I come back to it? I'm not sure. I do have another book mapped out in my head, but I'm not sure I'm going to have the opportunity to write it, because right now my focus is 100% with the Hunt series.
Well, let me ask you real quick. Has the success of Pearce Hunt had any sort of effect on the Mike Walton sales? I mean, have any of those, if people sought those books out, say, hey, I want to read the rest of this guy's stuff?
It went up by 1,000%, I would say.
Okay.
Wow. It big uptick in all the sales, especially when Hunt Them Down was a Kindle first read in January. You probably got 10,000 units of my Walton series sold during that month.
Wow.
It went really well.
That's awesome.
So it's really good. But it depends on the contracts that you have as well with the publisher and everything, because it's complicated. Everybody have different contract depending on your publisher. But I had a good contract with the Mike Walton series. I was happy with it. It's just that the books weren't selling enough.
Yeah.
Hey, how long did you actually think about writing before you actually tried it? I mean, was this something you thought of or tried while you were still working in your protective detail, or when did all that occur?
Yeah, it took me 7 years to write the first novel.
Wow.
And the Thin Black Line. I had no idea what I was doing at the time. And the only reason I started... the reason...
Do any of us?
Well, at some point you start to know what you need to do. Now I'm in the groove. I know exactly what I need to do, and it's much easier now than it was 7-10 years ago, because you know the routine. You know what you need. You know how to put your mind at work.
Structure and stuff.
Exactly. What was I going to say?
You were saying the reason you started.
Yeah, exactly. When I was working counterterrorism from 2004 to 2008, I traveled a lot and I was reading. I've always been a huge reader. I started when I was very young, reading Robert Ludlum's The Bourne Identity. These were my favorite. I fell in love with reading because of Robert Ludlum's. And I was reading some big names author that I've never been shot at. And I'm like, my God, their action scenes, they're not that great. These guys, they have no idea what it is. Like, there's so many mistakes in this book. If they're selling a ton of books, why don't I write? I didn't even know what I was getting into. I just said, I'm going to write something. And that's how I started. I said, I can write better action scenes than these guys.
Yeah.
And clearly I succeeded, because I think the review, everybody loves the action scenes. I mean, these guys are very good at other stuff, but I think my action scenes are really cool. And they represent what's really happening in the real world. You'll never see Mike Walton or Pearce Hunt shoot down a helicopter with a pistol while riding a motorcycle. It doesn't happen, because in real life it doesn't happen. Maybe I hope you don't have that in your own books.
It's
Ah,
almost like you were watching John Wick 3 with me last night.
Oh,
had that in my old book.
Yeah, cross that out.
Oh.
Well, along those lines, so as I've told you when we've had a few chances to talk to you in person, your pacing is relentless, and I think you do a great job of building dread. In fact, in this book, there's several waves of dread where you just think the worst is going to happen, and sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I think you're exceptional at that. As I was reading it, or after I was reading it, I was thinking, I can't tell. Is this guy an outliner, or is he a guy who has a basic idea and just writes from the seat of his pants? So answer that question. Are you a big outliner, or do you kind of just like let the story take you where it goes?
I'm 100% penser.
Wow.
I
Kyle
don't
Mills just had an
outline
aneurysm.
anything.
Kyle doesn't like you anymore.
I would have guessed that.
I've
Yeah, I
lost
wouldn't have either.
months. I've lost months of my life on outlines that I can't follow past chapter 3.
Oh,
It just doesn't happen for me. I can't work with an
Mhm.
outline. What I try to do is finish every chapter with a mini cliffhanger. I've always done that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But at least 3/4 of the chapters, I think it works well in Hunt Them Down and in Train to Hunt. They're not big cliffhangers, but just a little bit to say, oh, okay, I need to read the other
turn
chapter.
the page. Yep.
And I try to
Right.
keep my chapters as short as possible so people can always read one more, because there's nothing so boring as reading a chapter that has like 55 or 60 pages. I
Yep.
can't do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People need a break, and you need to change point of views at the same time. So it has worked for me. Everybody has their own.
No, it's
Own
the
way
one
of
of the
doing
things I
things.
like about your book, Simon, is your short chapters. I mean, the attention span of society today is very
Yeah.
short, and
Yeah.
so
Other people have
grab 'em.
taken your lead. I mean, like Brad Thor
Yeah.
is shortening them up, and all these other guys, they're kind of taking your lead on that. So I agree. fully.
Right.
What it made
I
me
don't
think
think they're
of.
taking my lead.
Oh, yes, they are.
Well, we're going to say
You
that.
never
They are.
know.
Yeah, we
Simon,
said
you
it.
never
All
know.
right.
Trailblazer. What it made me think of, and Chris actually misheard me. I guessed you were a pantser because I read a book one time that said the best writing comes when you write yourself into a corner and you don't know what you're going to do next. And I just felt like there were times when like you were writing and having fun writing the scene, and you were like, oh man, I'm going to put him in this terrible situation and see what happens. And then you figure out a great way to get him out of it. But that's kind of the sense I had when I was reading, in particular, Train to Hunt, even more so
Yeah.
than the
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what I like to do. And one of the things that really struck me is I read a good book, Story Trump Structure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Stephen James wrote it. He's a good friend of mine. Story Trump Structure.
Yep.
I'm not
Story
exactly
Trump structure.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
He's been
And,
drinking.
No, it's my French. And as I said, we need to talk about it. I didn't sleep for the last 56 hours.
Yeah,
We're going to ask you that.
we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah,
So-
we'll get there.
What he said, one of the things I remember from his book was that always say, what else can go wrong? Wherever you are in your book, what else can go wrong? Okay, he's going to open his car. What else can go wrong? Oh, it's going to explode, or he's going to have a flat tire. Whatever it is, even if it's a small, always try to bring obstacles to your protagonist. And that's what I've been doing with Train to Hunt. You think he escapes free with a helicopter? I got shut down by an RPG. If I was an outliner, I would have thought about that. I would have thought
Yeah.
about something more serious, more global. But now I really like that scene, and
I didn't
like
see
what
that
he
coming.
did after that.
Right.
No?
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
Caught me totally
Oh.
by surprise.
Well, it took me by surprise too. That's what's fun about being
It's
a
cool.
penciler. You don't know what you're doing on the next page.
Right.
I love it. I love it. And if I don't know what I'm writing, how can my readers guess what I'm going to do?
Oh, yeah.
I
So are
agree.
you like, I got the beginning, I got the end, I just don't know what the hell happens in the middle. And we'll get there.
I don't even have the beginning or the end. What I'm doing right now with Time to Hunt, which is the book 3 that's coming out in November 2020, I'm writing some chapters, some scenes that I love that I want to write in the middle. I have no idea how the book is going to start. I know it has to follow how Train to Hunt ended. So I
Right.
know there's going to be, I know where I'm going a little bit, but now I'm writing action scenes that are probably is going to be at page 100 or 150. That's how I work. That's always how I work.
So that is kind of similar to Kyle Mills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kyle works off his outline, but doesn't. It was telling us that he does not write in order. So he wakes up that morning and says, chapter 9.
Yeah.
Wakes up the next morning and says, chapter 73. Just whatever he feels like writing that day, he writes, which never had heard of before. But you read his finished product and it works. We read your finished product, and guess what?
It works.
It works. So
It's real good.
whatever
Yeah.
works. Keep doing what works.
And if I submit something that doesn't work 100%, my editor is going to let me know. I mean, there's a lot of seriously, there's a lot of people behind a book, right? That's going to help
absolutely.
you out and structure it correctly. One of the things between writing a debut novel is that you have as much time as you want, right?
Right.
You can take 7 years like I did to write it. So there's no real pressure on finishing it, or you can do whatever you want. But to get an agent and to get a publishing deal, it needs to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
On your first go, it needs to be
First
perfect.
go. Yep.
When you have a book contract, it needs to be very good. It doesn't mean to be perfect. The structure needs to be there. The plot needs to be interesting. The characters well developed. But then you have a whole team surrounding you that's going to work with you and making that product the best it can be. So even if you have a little bit more stress because you're short on time, you only have 10 months or 12 months to write the book instead of the 7 years that you had on your first time around.
Right.
You do have a lot of, you have a little bit less stress about making it exceptional on the first go.
Yeah.
Rise to the occasion, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Simon, switching gears a little bit, we know you a little bit and we know you're a traveled man. And we'll probably say you've led an interesting life, but you're still young. And this is a conversation Chris and I had a couple months ago. We shared our bucket list with each other. So what's on Simon's bucket list that you'd be willing to share?
I'm going to keep writing as long as they want me to keep writing. I really love what I'm doing. I don't feel like it's a job for me. It truly is a passion that I was able to do as a career now, which I'm very fortunate. I'll keep traveling. You see my media posts. We love Europe. We just spent the summer in Andorra, which is a little
It was
country
so
in between
beautiful.
Spain and France and the Pyrenees, and 3 weeks in Switzerland, which we love, and I honestly think is the best country in the world.
Gorgeous pictures, man.
Yeah,
I saw 'em,
unbelievable.
yeah, gorgeous.
And even, as you know, pictures don't do it justice.
Right.
No, I know.
Even more
right.
magnificent. So I'll keep traveling. My wife still has her endodontic clinic. She's not thinking about stopping anytime soon either. Our kids are 12 and 14 now, or almost. I just think I'm exactly where I want to be in my life right now, and I'm loving every day of it.
That's a blessing.
Awesome.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about your books. We talked about your background. We talked about Pearce hunt and train to hunt. But we also know you have a home in the Bahamas, and the hurricanes that barreled through there and devastated that area. Was your home affected? And I think you're in the Bahamas right now. So why don't you tell us what's going on?
Yeah, Hurricane Dorian was the worst thing that ever happened to the Bahamas. Not only for human lives, but also for the economy of the country. 2 of the 3 biggest towns were almost wiped out: Freeport and Marsh Harbor. I'm in Nassau right now, which wasn't hit, but we dodged a major bullet because I don't know if you followed what happened, but the hurricane stayed on station for close to 36 hours or
It's
2
like
days.
unprecedented.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented, and the water levels went up by between 21 and 23 feet. So it destroyed pretty much everything. And the hurricane.
Like, where do you go? You're on an island. Where do you go?
Oh, there's nowhere to go except high ground, and even then, the building were not strong enough to sustain all this wind. So, it's a true tragedy. And fortunately, I don't know anyone that was directly that lost everything. But we do have staff in the Bahamas, and they do have family members that lost their home, damaged their roof. Oh, nobody that I know lost their life, fortunately. but there's a lot of damage, and the economy is going to take a generation to get back on its feet.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. How long do you think it takes for them to recover from that? I know Nassau wasn't hit as hard, or Paradise Island, where like a lot of Americans go, but Freeport, a lot of people go there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, how long do you think they're back and up and running?
I can tell you that the Abaco is going to take a generation because
That's-
they've lost really everything.
jeez.
Freeport, there's a little bit higher ground on the south of the island, so I think they'll be better before. But there a lot of industries has to shut down. For example, this is Sans Beer. This is a Bahamian brewery, and they had to shut down completely. So when I went through the liquor store earlier today, I was trying to get a Sans Light, which is the same beer but lighter, and a Sans Pink, which is kind of a grapefruit taste as well.
Ooh, yeah.
They're not making them anymore because
Oof.
they can't produce it.
Wow.
So a lot of people lost their employment, they lost their job. Some of
Oh.
them lost their family. So I don't think there's no quick fix to that. And the government is small. They don't have the population total of the Bahamas, about 350,000 people. They don't have the money to rebuild everything. So that's why people like us, or where I live in Palm Key, we try to be generous with these guys. They let us come here with our homes and vacation and enjoy their country. So we try to give back a little.
Right.
Oh,
Great.
nice.
Well, I don't want to end on a somber note, so we're gonna switch gears totally, and we're gonna lighten up a little bit, and we're gonna do what we like to call the lightning round.
Oh, here it comes.
We're gonna fire some questions at you, and you're not gonna think. We just want you to answer. Right.
Alright.
First thing that pops in your mind.
Because we didn't think when we wrote the questions. So
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no thinking. Just they could be yes or no questions, or an or question. So
Well,
I'm gonna start off.
I'm French, so it takes 5 seconds for me to translate what you're saying.
There's no
Into
no excuse.
no, you can't do that. That's
You can even respond in French. It's okay.
We
No
won't know what
problem.
the hell you're saying. at
we
least
have
I
one
don't.
person in Canada that speaks French. Yeah.
I don't even speak English properly. Anyway, so
No, he doesn't.
I don't. I'm from Jersey, so I speak that.
I see.
So ready? You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Justin Trudeau or Stephen Harper?
Stephen Harper.
He's not thinking. That's perfect.
No,
Didn't-
no.
You didn't have to think about that one.
Oh.
That was really quick. Beach or mountains? Ooh.
Mountains.
Really?
And that
Did
surprises
you
you,
hear
right?
me?
Yes,
Yes.
it
Beach
does.
or mountains?
That changed this summer, my friends. When I went to Switzerland for a full month,
Yeah,
it changed my life. It really did.
it was.
If you would have asked me
beautiful.
that question in June, I would have said beaches. Not anymore. Mountains.
All right, ready?
Wow.
Good man. Good man.
Canadian bacon or regular bacon?
Canadian bacon.
Yeah.
French or English?
French.
So now you're forced to immigrate to the U.S. What city do you live in?
Miami, Florida.
There you go.
Really?
There's no mountains there.
There's no mountains.
I
in
know,
there.
but I couldn't think. Miami is one of my favorite cities. In June, it was my favorite city. So,
Good answer.
You've been watching too much Miami Vice.
He followed our rules, and you guys are punishing him for it.
It's because of his boat. He has a boat, so he's thinking he's
Yeah,
Don
he wants to be Don Johnson.
Yeah,
That's
he's
what he
Don
wants to do.
well, we used to keep one of our boats in Fort Lauderdale, so I know the area very well. That's probably one of the reasons why I talk about Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Weston in my books with the
Yeah.
Pearce series, because it's for some years it was our second home.
You write what you know.
Exactly.
All right, I'm up. Molson's or Moosehead?
Who said?
All right. Here you go. This one's going to be a toughie. Greatest hockey player of all time.
Mario Lemieux.
Really?
Mario Lemieux, like you
Lemieux.
say in English.
Lemieux.
66 Penguin Pittsburgh.
Yes, yes. All right. John Candy or Dana Carvey?
John Candy, because I don't know the other guy.
Really?
Better
All
choice.
Belgian or Swiss chocolate?
Swiss chocolate.
These are just going too fast. We got to get tougher with this guy.
You told me I'm not allowed to.
He's not
I'm
supposed to
allowed
think. He's
I
I just say
listening.
what
but
what's
at
on my
least
mind.
make it look impossible. All right, here's a good one. This one you're going to have to think on.
All right.
How much money to take back Justin Bieber?
I really don't care about these. It's hard for me. I so don't care about these pop star, honestly.
That's actually a great answer.
So Mike knows what picture to put behind you now in post-production.
Question solved right there. You want front row, right? Okay.
Oh my God.
Okay, I think I'm up now.
Yep.
I don't know now I'm confused if I'm going to know the answer to these or not. So,
Right.
cottage skiing or Bahama boating?
Bahama boating.
Bahama boating. I thought you might go with that.
But I had to think on this one because that's
Good.
a close call.
I'm glad you weighed that one. We talked a little bit about guns earlier and stuff, but Glock or Sig?
Sig.
Sig. Okay, that's a pretty common answer nowadays.
Yeah.
So, wine or whiskey?
Wine.
Wine. There we
But
go.
it
That
doesn't
spritzer
mean I
thing,
don't
man.
like single malt whiskey, but wines I really love. And at some point, I'd like to do a sommelier course as well with my wife. I'm really into
Awesome.
wines, and it's something I'm passionate
Ooh.
about. I just don't know enough right now,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something I'm passionate about, and I'd like to learn a lot more.
We're
about
going to
it.
see in Northern California.
I love this place. I do. I do.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you a call if I go.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Are you traveler or homebody?
Oh, definitely a traveler.
Definitely
Both me and my
traveler.
wife, we can't even spend a weekend at home. We can't. And we need to go to cottage. We need to take the plane to go somewhere. We're unhappy at home. We're unhappy at home, but it need to be the four of us going somewhere. I can't.
I'm
stay
with
home.
you.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
definitely
awesome.
with you. So this is more of maybe a Pearce Hunt type of mindset. So you're on the run. You can only bring 2 items as you're running out of the house. What are your 2 items you're grabbing?
Anything can be electronic or anything.
Any 2
Anything.
items. Don't say your kids, but any 2 physical items that are not human. What are you taking?
I'll take my phone. What else?
I don't know.
I don't know. You got
What else are you taking? That's
Oh,
your
I
question.
have 2 things, right?
2.
Yes.
Oh my God.
2 items.
And I'm not allowed to bring anything else. No humans.
No human. So 2 physical items. Phone is a good one.
All right. I'll take my phone and my car.
There you go.
All right.
Okay.
That took a lot of thought.
Yeah. No.
Well, he thought he had one.
I'm running.
I'm glad this is getting tougher.
That tells you he's not a possessions person. His first thought was his kids, his family. I respect that.
So this is not a technical gun question, but you said you threw a lot of lead down the range. What's the best shot you ever made, either in practice or in not practice?
Not practice.
See him in action.
Well, there's I had some. There's a course of fire when you're an air marshal that you need to follow, and I know it's open source. You can look at it, but I already got my fingers snapped once for talking about it, so I won't talk about it. But there's something that you need to do really, really fast on stage 1. It's extremely difficult, and I got a super good score on it,
Right.
and I'll leave it at that.
Allegedly. Okay. No.
Allegedly.
No. I was protecting him. I know
We're
he
just
did.
going to talk to Chris about this afterwards anyway.
So okay, so you protected a lot of different people. Who was the most intimidating protectee that you actually like?
Yeah,
engineer?
you're gonna love that. It's gonna be General James Mattis,
yeah, baby.
the
I do
former
love that.
secretary. Oh my God, this guy is absolutely awesome. Respect all the way for this gentleman. And it speaks for something that your American Congress that cannot get anything in agreement. Everybody agreed that General James
Yeah.
Mattis is the guy that you can trust.
Yeah.
He impressed me like no other dignitary ever did. And I did protect a lot of different people. But this is he's on another level completely. He has the full respect and commitment of his protective detail. He just
Awesome.
inspire confidence.
Yeah.
His leadership.
He also has one of the best quotes ever: "Be polite, be professional, and have a plan to kill everyone you meet." Love that quote. Love that quote.
And he's also got one of the coolest call signs.
What was it? Oh
Chaos.
yeah, that's right. That's
Chaos.
right.
Yeah.
No,
All right, now we're back on track here. So, best band from Canada, like rock band or music band.
Honestly, you got me there. I don't listen to music much.
Okay. We're going with Rush. We're going to go with Rush. He said Rush. Okay. Now this one you're probably too young to even know, but I had it down anyway.
Okay.
Better McKinsey brother, Bob or Doug? You know who they are?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Okay, you gotta look this
an old
up.
comedy bit. I'm going to send you some stuff because you'll get a kick out of it.
Okay.
Maybe. Last question. Did you ever play Simon Says, and were you the best at it?
I did. I wasn't the best.
Good
That's
answer.
crazy.
Oh man, nobody's gonna watch this show, so
and-
don't worry about it.
Yeah. Well, dude, that's the end of the lightning round.
We end on that note.
Simon,
survived.
you did pretty well, although you couldn't think of a band from Canada. So
Yeah.
No, and I said, and you know what? I'm still thinking about it. It doesn't. My wife's gonna kill me. She likes music. Like I said, I don't listen to these things.
Have her send us a message, and then we'll edit it in.
Yeah.
yeah, we'll do a
Okay,
voiceover.
okay.
We'll do a still picture from
We'll
her
have
practice.
Eric do a French accent.
Lisa says that.
All right.
No.
We'll put it on the green screen behind him.
Yeah. Strangling
But
him.
Simon, seriously, we really appreciate you coming on our podcast at Crew Reviews. We'd love to have you on when you release your next book in the Pearce Hunt series. And for everybody, Train to Hunt is available everywhere.
Yeah, let's get it.
I'll buy it. It's a fantastic
thanks,
book.
guy. Thanks, guy. I really appreciate you having me in. You're really dialed in, and best of luck with your podcast. I think it's awesome.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
bud.
much.
Having a good time.
Let's have a drink to Simon, everybody.
All right, Simon,
Drink
to
Simon.
you.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Continued
Guys.
success.
Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers, brother.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for sticking around for another great episode of the Crew Reviews podcast. I want to thank our guest tonight, Simon Gervais, whose latest book, Train to Hunt, is now available. So go out and buy it. And we'd like to thank you for tuning in by giving away a signed copy of Simon's book. All you need to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a comment on this video. But if you want 2 entries, then you need to head on over to our Twitter page. Follow us and then like and retweet our pinned tweet. We'll announce the winner on Friday. Have a great night, everyone. Can't wait to see you on the next podcast.
There we go.
Salute.
Salute, everybody. Thank you. So we're recording. Are you ready to go there, Shawnee, Eric, Chris? Are you ready to go?
Whatever my name is.
We got to loosen up here.
My mother says you're shooting 2 shows and drinking. You're not going to make it through the second one.
Your mother's a smart lady.
Yeah, he's gonna get an atomic wedgie next time.
They're going to ban me from Twitter for like 2 days prior us shooting, so I can't.
It's actually probably a good idea.
It's probably a really good idea.
I don't hear the
Later.
applause. Where's the applause?
I got the cricket button.
I hear
There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
That was for you, Ma. That was for you.
that goes in the bloopers.
and it's Gervais.
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 I've heard
mean,
you say Simon or Simone. How do you want me to pronounce your name?
Not
Simon.
wrong.
It's not Simon because you can't pronounce the French accent. It's Simon, not Simon. You Anglophone cannot do.
I'm from
I'm
Jersey.
holding it up.
So Simon is better.
Don't ask the kid from Jersey to do a French accent.
All right, so Simon Gervais.
Okay, there's outtake number 1. I already got
There's
one.
my boy Simone.
And we'd like to thank you for turning in by giving away a signed copy of Simon's book.
Start over.
Yeah,
Start over. Damn it.
You did cut out a little bit there too. Your voice got a little pubescence.
Crew reviews, not cruise reviews too.
Cruise reviews.
Reviews. I
We're
love
doing
that.
cruise reviews.
And
I know
Next
the
week,
guy.
Carnival.
I went.
Sounds like,
I
good, I'm
worked
not
with a
going,
guy
I screwed it up.
Cruise,
All right.
Hey, that's something. That's a tie-in. We need the crew
here we
reviews on a
go.
cruise review.
and we want to thank you for tuning in.
It's the stress.
See, it's not as easy as it looks, is it?
as you like, people. Sean's feeling very good
I'm gonna
about
have a
himself
drink.
right now.
John's got a little button he's pushing to screw you up somehow.
Thank
Take
you.
43 in 3, 2, 1, go.
All you need to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Good job, buddy. Good job. Now,
All right, now we're back on track here. So, best band from Canada, like rock band or music band.
Honestly, you got me there. I don't listen to music much.
Okay. We're going with Rush. We're going to go with Rush. He said Rush. Okay.
Hang on, no,
There you go. Hold on, no, gotta wait. Gotta wait. Now ask.
he's like a Labrador.
Ask.
Go.
So Simon, who is the greatest band from Canada?
Rush.
You're right.
Yes, he's absolutely
Totally
right.
Oh
Totally right.
my God!
Excellent.
No, you're gonna use that against me. I
It'll
have
make
no
you
idea.
beloved.
They're probably super bad.
A Monday warrior, mean strike. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean